A very good afternoon to you all, and thank you very much to Ata and the first panel. Quite a tough act to follow, but I tell you what, we are good to go. In our panel, we are talking about, of course, the high-level theme being reimagining higher education, but we are talking about representation in particular in our session here. Talking about representation, talking demographics, and to, of course, pick up on the first conversation, talking about what is taught in our institutions of higher learning, who's teaching it, how do they teach it, who is part of creating that knowledge, and how is that knowledge being received. I feel very lucky this afternoon to be joined on this platform by two incredible thinkers, academics, and fabulous women. Yeah. Yeah. So the same format as the first panel is what we're doing here. My panelists will give opening remarks for 5 minutes each, and then we jump straight into the discussion. And of course, we'll open it up for some wonderful engagement from you as well, so do keep those questions coming in. I will not read their bios, or else we'll be here until Wednesday. Snigi Mkati is class of 2015. Class of 2015, hey, there you are. She's representing us, you guys, I'm 2016, representing you guys this afternoon. And I'll ask Snigo to please take to the podium for her opening remarks.
Thank you, Sebenzile, and good afternoon to everyone here this afternoon. As you have heard from Sebenzile, I'm from the class of 2015, very, very happy to be a Mandela Road Scholar. So as an opening, I just thought I should tell you a tale about a girl from Opepeni, which is in the southern of KwaZulu-Natal, a rural area, who just happened to be fortunate to be able to get university education in South Africa, a rare opportunity for many where she comes from. And I always like to tell just a little bit of background about myself and how I got to Rhodes, just to show that for some people, these universities are very, very far. So in 2007, when I did my matric, I did not know about Rhodes. I didn't know about such university. It was a colleague of my father who told me about it and helped me apply. And nobody in my family or in my community knew about Rhodes University. And how I got there partly was because my father was working as a security guard at Mangosuthu University of Technology. And he was an in-sourced security guard. And part of his benefits as a security guard was that the university would pay 75% of tuition and accommodation fees for his children if they go to study at any university in South Africa. And without that benefit, I would not have made it to Rhodes. But when I got to Rhodes, and obviously I prepared myself because I was leaving my community for the first time, I was leaving my family for the first time, leaving KwaZulu-Natal, going to the Eastern Cape in this place called Rhodes. And I knew that I would have to work harder than I have ever done before, and so on. And when I got to Rhodes, I was in for a shock, two shocks actually. The first one was with my first lecture, which was Politics 101 with Professor Louis Vincent. I did not understand a single word of what Professor Louis Vincent was saying. Nothing at all. I was sitting there at the back at Barat 1, those who know Rhodes. And I was like, what is this woman talking? What language is she speaking? Because I could not understand a single word of what she was saying. And I started thinking, but I wrote my matric in English. My teachers were teaching me in English. Yes, they were throwing isiZulu there and there, but they were teaching me in English. So what is happening here? So that was frustrating, but I survived. Here I am. And the second shock was that I remember at the night when I had to leave for varsity, my father, who is a traditional healer, so don't ask me difficult questions, otherwise lightning is coming to me. So my father was standing in paper and he was saying that I should not learn the white Western ways when I go to varsity and so on. So I prepared myself for these white students that I'm going to meet there, who are going to be racist, and I prepared myself with, I'm going to tell them Shem. And when I got there, the hostility, guys, that I received from fellow black students was, yeah, beyond. So laughing at how I speak English, laughing at my long dresses, and just being unolali, you know how we are, right? So they were also laughing at those ways, being a rural girl. So it was very difficult. But I am grateful for that experience and the relationship that I had with them, Uguti. They gave me a hard time because it looked like they were safeguarding the space because they had learned to act and to survive in this white space, and they were safeguarding it for foreigners coming in and new people like me, and that was all new and strange to me. But I'm grateful for the experience because it taught me, Uguti, as black people, as we enter these white spaces, we will change, and we do change. And when we do change, we need to be asking ourselves, Uguti, what are we becoming? Who are we becoming? And do we like what we are becoming? And I think ever since then, in light of the discussion that we are having today, talking about representation in higher education and the culture that we find there, Uguti, we need to constantly think of who we are and what we become when we enter these spaces. And how does that affect how we fight and what we choose to fight when we enter these spaces? So I'd like to end it there for the introduction.
Oh, it's already good. It's already good. Interestingly, Sniggy, you mentioned you were wearing long dresses. Today you aren't. So, you've changed. You've changed. You'll tell us a bit more about that change. Our next panelist really needs no introduction, or she really doesn't. If you're on Twitter, she's at Fab Academic.
Thank you. I've been given 5 minutes, so I thought I should get on with it. So thank you to the Mandela Rhodes Foundation for the platform to reimagine higher education in South Africa at such a critical time. As the foundation reimagined itself in light of Mandela's contrasted legacy with that of Cecil John Rhodes, it is time to rethink the coloniality of higher education. I therefore appreciate the invitation to participate in the panel discussion on the theme, representation in higher education. I also wish to honor President Mandela, whose memory we cherish on the centenary of his birth. I have prepared 5 points to make for each of the minutes I have. And I prepared a script so that I stick to the time, otherwise I can speak for the whole day. So, and I hope these points will stimulate wider engagement later. First, my first point, although representativity is important, unless it addresses inclusivity, it remains mainly cosmetic. Of course, demographics have to change, especially at our research universities, and dramatically so. But diversity alone, in my view, will not achieve equality. Nor will it attain the scholarly and professional excellence to which this foundation aspires. For me, diversity and inclusivity fall under the much larger canopy of social justice. Transformation of higher education is ultimately about moving from representativity that is reflected only in access to bringing the majority into discussion about diversity, thus moving to equity of participation, success, and thus empowerment in universities. Second point, it is true that to move from access to participation, we need more black professors, and especially women, because inclusivity is not about, it's also about institutional culture and intellectual ecology. To this extent, we need to live up to our South African Constitution and acknowledge that diversity is essential in design thinking for innovative culture futures, be they scientific or social. The right to belong It's at the heart of the police movement, in my view. That's what the police movement was about, the right to belong in every which way in the university space. In this sense, it is not about African students and staff assimilating into a university culture that is not theirs as a precondition for their participation. Rather, it is about ownership of a space that is public and thus exhibits an expansive citizenship, which is at the heart of the democratic project. Thirdly, in any discussion about representativity, diversity, and inclusivity, we need to raise critical consciousness about equity, power, and oppression, which means interrogating our own privileged roles. This has to do with social and academic inclusion so that knowledge by enlargement becomes our lodestar. This then goes to the question of curriculum, which is my fourth point. Curriculum transformation, although long overdue in South African universities, will not, in and of itself, achieve equality. We talk about curriculum as if as soon as you decolonize curriculum or you transform curricula, we will have achieved equality. And I don't think we will, because curriculum change is important, but it is not everything. We all know that creative scholarship comes from direct and critical challenges to curriculum and pedagogy, which is what the decolonial turn reflects in contemporary university politics. But this is not to deny that so much of what we teach is transplanted from other worldviews and contexts. Curricular transformation is therefore an honest intellectual endeavor in the interests of social justice. My final point brings me to Amartya Sen's conception of human flourishing, which moves us from equity of access and participation to the ideology of human potential. My view is that universities have to be about recognizing human potential, about the fact that everyone can be excellent, can succeed and be excellent. This is a way of rehumanizing the university. It entails demographic and curricular change, as well as symbolic transformation, in other words, representativity in the naming of buildings and structures, in architectural forms and multilingualism, among other things. I therefore believe that the transformation of universities is critical in their sustainability. Ultimately, our universities have to be reimagined, and quickly. Surely, this is a truly intellectual project with huge social dividends. I look forward to the engagement.
Thank you very much to you both. I'll start with you, Prof. You've said that when we talk about transformation in the space, we need, of course, to have more black professors, we need more women professors. You are 2 weeks in the job as Vice Chancellor of UCT. Are you hiring? No, seriously. Let's talk a bit more about what that looks like going forward. And in as much as we're all in agreement that that should happen,
Yeah.
It doesn't just happen on its own. So what process in your mind should that take?
Okay. So firstly, let me just say that in the transformation project, in my view, what has happened is that the student body has transformed much faster than the staff, if you like. So you have more black students, but not as many academics, especially black academics, especially at the higher ranks. And I think that has created sort of, in my view, a disequilibrium, if you like. And so that we have more work to do in terms of transforming the staff complement, the academic cohort. And I think doing that, it starts with, firstly, talking about academia as a possible career. I mean, many black students don't think about academia as a possible career. Many black students go to university and they think they want to make money. And so they get to university and then they want to get out and be wealthy and make money, because that's academia. You don't get into academia to do that. So to convince students to come into postgraduate studies with the idea of being academics, I have found it not so easy. And that's one of the things I do on Twitter, to get students to get into postgraduate studies, and hence the hashtag, right? So I think we have to start there, but also to understand
what the business is about in academia. What does it mean when you get an academic job? Because it's one thing to get the job. It's one thing to get a PhD. That doesn't make you a successful academic. And if you come into the academic space, I mean, the problem with doing a doctorate is once you're doing it, you think once you get it, you feel like you have arrived and you feel great. But once you get it, it's as if you walk into a hall and everyone has got a red gown. And they're wondering why you're excited about this. Because everyone's got it. And so you've got to figure out how do you stand out. And so the upward mobility is not about accumulating qualifications. It's about understanding what the game is about. What the academic project, how do you thrive in that environment? And I find that many young black people who come into the academic space do not necessarily understand the academic career as an academic. What does it mean? What does it take to become a successful academic?
Maybe institutions should start paying more?
Well, the issue is that, you see, we can say institutions have to start paying more, but you are saying then money is the problem. Well, you are saying money is the solution. I mean, it's like throwing money to the problem. What are we paying for? And how much is more? You will never have enough. Okay, so what is paying more? Maybe we should have a new way of valuing. Maybe our values, there's something wrong with them. Okay? And maybe that's what we should challenge ourselves about as black people. And maybe we should stop talking about black tax and start saying that's who we are. That's humanity. That's how we take care of our people. It is not tax. Because we talk about colonization and we want to decolonize, but we are recolonizing ourselves. Because we use the language of the colonizer to describe practices that are about who we are as African people. And maybe if you stop calling black tax, maybe if you start a different value system about, then maybe then we realize what it means to go into the knowledge space and be influential in that space without necessarily accumulating a whole lot of money. And I'm not saying people should be poor, but I'm saying you can be comfortable without earning gazillions of money.
Brilliant. So Nigewe, let's talk about the theme of the right to belong that Prof touched on, and I think that really is at the heart of what you described as coming in as a foreigner in a space where you don't belong, and people safeguarding and protecting and wanting to keep it to themselves. Do you now feel as though higher HE institutions are a place where you belong?
No.
Still.
Well, my experience at Rhodes was different. At VETS in 2015 was different from the experience that I had at Rhodes in 2009 to 2011. And I think it's also partly because I'm also growing, so it was two different stages of my life. But I still don't think that I can proudly look at Rhodes University and say, that is my university. I also do not think that I would look at VETS and proudly say, that is my university, Events University. And I think that mainly because, and I raised this even in 2015 during the Fees Must Fall, I still feel like even the things that we raise within the space of Fees Must Fall movement are the things that serve a certain group of black people in this country.
Tell them.
So I'm still not, even in the movement of the Fees Must Fall, I still not feel represented as Usinikiwe, coming from Opepeni, as opposed to a black person who went to a model school. So I've always been struggling with that, and this is where I think we need to continue having these engagements as black people who would see. And it's so easy to talk about race because it's black and white. But when it comes to talking about the differences amongst ourselves, how do we deal with the different layers that we have amongst ourselves as young people? And how do we talk about those things and make sure that we are all represented in these movements that we are even serving? So when you talk about Uguti, do I feel like I belong at Rhodes? No. Do I feel like I belong at VETS? No. Do I feel like I belong in Mlazi, Ekaelija, or Pepeni? I do. And I think that's what we need to be thinking about in terms of these universities. What is it that makes me feel Uguti when I was at high school? I would look at the soccer team and say, that is my school soccer team, that is my school choir. But that doesn't happen when I get to university.
So let me ask you this. What do you believe you could have brought into those spaces, UCAR, excuse me, and VITS, that could have, in whatever small way, changed the experience? Because culture is formed by people, and you, as a person there, you contribute to it.
As a person there, you contribute to that culture given the level of your relationship with the people in that space. You know, so if you cannot contribute into something that you constantly need to fight for you to belong, you get tired. You know, and even when you do fight, you do not fight at the same level as the people that are ahead, as the people that are seen. You know, because you are coming with a different background. And I think that, and I always say that I think my experience at Rhodes would have been so much different if I had met other young people, other students who were going through the same thing. And the university wasn't even allowing for that space, because I went to my lecturers, Mina, and said, I don't know what is going on here. I don't have friends. I'm struggling to understand this English of yours that you are using to teach. Nobody did anything. You know, nobody did anything for me. So even the support and mentorship within this university, it's not there. And they do have data, who is in these universities, who is in there, and who needs what, you know, but nothing is just being done. So in terms of saying, how do I contribute to that as Usiniki, we're changing that culture? What do I do to change that culture? I think now I know what I can do to change that culture, because I've learned to also speak out. And in terms of also learning, how do I make sure that I hold the doors open for other people that are coming after me? I talk about these experiences, and I confront even some of my former black colleague students to say that how do we make sure that as black people we are representing each other in these spaces, not just to say that because we are all black we all have same experiences.
Prof, speak perhaps a bit more to that point for me. Can we speak of a so-called university community, or should we just call it a sector? And I ask that because if we mention the likes of TUT, who have been at this fight of fees for the longest time, nobody cares. As soon as VIT steps up, as soon as UCAR makes a noise, as soon as something happens at UCT, oh dear, the country stops. So how do students from institutions like that, from Mangosuthu University of Technology, and other places, how do they feel as though they belong to this so-called community, when, to Sniko's point, that you also don't feel represented by the very people who you should or you're expected to identify with?
But you know, we talk about this thing as if it's new. I mean, I like what Sniko is saying, because you see, at the moment, you contrast TUT and VETS and UCT. When I went to university, I was at the University of Botswana for my undergrad. You know, TEFLOP was the one that got the news. We didn't. And in fact, if TEFLOP shut down or Forte shut down, we just shut down in solidarity. Yes, that's how it was. We shut down the, even if we didn't, they were fighting about the food in their dining hall. That has got nothing to do with our food. But nobody paid attention to our issues because we were a small university in the homeland. Okay? And somehow I could have sat there and said, well, we are not important. They were black as well. And we are black as well. You know. And those things will always be there. And I, you know, as much as I hear Sniki, I want to challenge something. Because, I mean, I went from Unibo to VETS, right? And of course, for many years at VETS, I did from honors to PhD at VETS. And there were many years where I didn't feel it's my university. And it got to a stage where I thought, I mean, I'm going to lose my manners here. I mean, firstly, I thought it's going to do with me. I got into an honors class. You know, I was the only black girl. There were two other black guys. People didn't raise their hands and wait to be pointed. People just spoke. They chatted to the lecturer afterwards. You pause, they come in. I was like, wow, I spent 6 months not saying anything. Then I realized, it's my manners, man. I should lose this nonsense. They pause. Now I got this. They pause, I speak. Okay, so by the time I got to masters, I was starting to gain my voice. But But also it's about, I don't think we have to think the university has to change because our presence there must make the university change. But how it's going to make it, it's not because someone is going to stop and say, now Sinikiwe is in the room, ladies and gentlemen, Master Chen is close. Usinikiwe must assert herself, must stop the class. I'm sorry, Professor so-and-so. Your accent is a little difficult. Can you help us? If Usinikiwe is going to keep quiet, not everyone is a seer and can see what people are struggling with. So at some stage, so I know my liberation and and the reason why I call vets my own today, I call vets my own. I give to it every month. I give to vets. I protect it. I feel that I own it. Because I've got, and somehow I don't feel like I own Northwest because Unibo died. But I feel like I own that. But it's because in the process I got to a stage where I thought, this is my university, I'm going to speak up. If I'm not happy, I will write to them.
What's stopping students from doing that? Is it a sort of an inferiority complex?
Well, I think though the ground is shifting. I mean, one of the things that the fees must fall, I mean, people talk about fees must fall, as just a traumatizing situation, 2015, 2016. I think actually we needed that. In so many ways we needed it. It has shifted the power on campus. It has shifted who owns the lecture room. I mean, I asked one of the professors at UCT, how different is your class now from what it was before 2015? And he said, it's interesting. Black students sit in front now. White students have a context. It's not the same anymore. They don't talk like own the space. And I think that's important. And for me, that it's part of owning. I mean, and I don't think it's going to be easy, but I think we spent so many years after democracy, those spaces, being desperate just to get the degree, that now our young people are saying, I'm not just going to get the degree. I want to own this space, and this space must be mine, and it must make me feel comfortable. And I think that 2015, 2016 sort of moved us to sort of, we're not there yet, but it's part of it. In some cases, like I said, I felt individual, I've got to do this. As soon as I got my doctorate, we got into a staff meeting, and I was like, I want to coordinate the postgraduate program. And of course, the whole room in a meeting thought, shoo, how arrogant. She thinks she can do this? And of course, it's quite hard to do that, right? Because it sounds like you're too sure of yourself. And people will call you names, okay? Narcissists, self-whatever, too confident, and so on and so forth. That's okay, in my view, all right? So I said, I wanna coordinate the postgraduate program. And I thought, if I do it once, then they can see actually what I can do. But many people won't do that. But I think it's shifting. I think it's shifting slow. I think the shift has been painful in some ways because it's been forced, because the academy hasn't moved voluntarily.
Brilliant. I'm going to open it up to questions in just a moment. So you can wink at me, wave at me. I'll just take note of them. But I just want to throw you in this question. Single in South Africa, whenever we talk diversity transformation, we leave it and limit it to race. But there are all sorts of people who are othered, whether othered on the basis of sexuality, gender, religion, all of these other aspects. Touch on those for me. So in your experience, you've spoken about where you came from, culturally as well, how it was a foreign space. But let's talk about these other aspects of diversity. Did you see them represented? Did you see wonderful LGBTI people free, expressing themselves on campus? Did you see moms with babies or dads with babies on campus, or people praying in the middle of the student center? Did you see all of that?
No. And I think, no. And I think this is where, just to touch on briefly on what Professor Pakeng was saying there about taking the initiative and wanting to fight. I think I always say to my friends, and sometimes some of them get angry at me when I say this, I do not think fees must fall would have happened if all students at university in 2015 afforded to pay the fee. It was about them and their parents not being able to afford to pay. And then when as soon as the 0% fee increase was announced, some of them were like, we are back to go back. And others were then like, no, we want to continue and fight for systematic change. And I think it speaks to the broader question that you're asking, Muti. As people, we generally just do not care about what does not affect us as individuals, right? Because it doesn't affect you, so why care? And I think that's why we need to have this conversation to say, Uguti, how do we see somebody else's oppression as yours? Injury to one is injury to all. And see everything in relation to Uguti. It's about us as humanity. It is about us as people, as human beings. And when you look at across different societies, different communities, values are the same. Everyone wants to have a sense of belonging. Everyone wants to be free. Everyone wants to be treated as a human being. So we need to start seeing each other as fellow human beings. You know, I see you. You are present as a fellow human being, and you deserve to be rightfully represented and respected and valued as I also deserve, no matter how different we are. So, yeah.
And I see you, Zinje. All right, so we'll play this out. There's a question there and back there. We'll take those three first. Go for it, Zinje. Please stand.
I go. Thank you. I just want to go back to the conversation that I thought you were leading towards, the question around historically black universities. The first time in my life I had to teach at the University of Zululand, and I was shocked when I got there. One, I didn't fit in. I cried after my first lecture because I was mocked and all those things. And so I'm questioning when we start having conversations around representation and creating inclusive spaces. I mean, half the people in the room will probably stand up and they'll state that they studied at historically white universities. And so when do we start having conversations around historically black universities and ensuring that there's enough representation there? Because even if you go to historically black universities, like at Zululand, the department was black, but there was no woman. And most of the people were not, they didn't have higher qualifications. They were not doctors and all those things. So you go to Zululand and it's black, but then what they teach is the very same things that is being taught at historically white universities. I really want to go back there because I think that we're missing something around historically black universities.
Gotcha, thank you. Just in front of you, the lady there. There you go.
So my question is directed to Professor King. And when I think about decolonization of universities, I think of two things. I think about how to change the experience for people of color at universities, but then I also think about research. And the problem with attending an institution such as UCT is that it prides itself on being, you know, the top university in Africa, which changes year by year. But that is based on its research. And what you find is that the people who go into academia, in order to get those research credentials, in order to get published in papers, they just keep contributing to the same neoclassical theories that everybody else is writing about. And so it's very difficult to maintain that image of the university while still transforming what type of knowledge is being produced. And that's further perpetuated by the fact that I know people who are willing to produce new knowledge and willing to think differently and want to really produce really progressive pieces, and they go and study at Oxford or go and study in the US to produce knowledge about South Africa or Africa at large. And so how do we transform or decolonize our institutions so that the research that is being produced is not only progressive, but is also well respected in South Africa, in Africa, and in the rest of the world?
I'm interested, you said people of color. Who are people of color in Africa?
Everybody that's not white.
I'm being cheeky, I'm teasing you. Right at the back.
Thank you very much. My name is Lindo Kushi, and I want to ask a question to Prof. I'm really interested in this question of black tax perhaps I would want you to speak more on that, whether you call it a moral obligation, whether you call it who we are as black people. But I do maintain that that does not exist out of a vacuum. The burden of black tax or that moral obligation does not exist out of a vacuum. It was structurally and deliberately engendered by our colonial and apartheid history. And for that reason, South Africa continues to be a class and racially divided society. And perhaps that might be another reason why you do not have black students who pursue their studies further, because there's a burden at home. There are gaps that must be filled. I don't know if Prof had perhaps looked at it from that perspective on what black tax is to black people, whether you want to consider it as moral obligation or who we are as black people.
Brilliant, thank you.
Okay, all right. Let me start with black tax. I mean, I'm deliberately being provocative. I grew up in a family where there were always people who didn't belong to our family, and we were poor. I started school under a tree. My mother was a domestic worker. She worked at factories. Talk about eating pap and water, I know it all. Talk about letterkrap, trachoma, all of those nutritional diseases, I've had them. So it's not as if I don't know poverty. But even in that poverty, there were people who stayed with us, who slept in the dining room, in the kitchen, because that's just how, and we grew up knowing that you share what you have. It doesn't matter how little it is. You do not share it because you have a lot. You don't, because if you have a lot, it's like you're giving what you don't want. I grew up knowing that in our culture, you share what you have. Even when you need it, you share it with other people, because it is uncomfortable to be comfortable alone. Whatever that level of comfort is, okay, I don't care where it comes from, whether it comes from colonialism or whatever. Many things that we call black today, even the food, the mohodus and whatever, came as a result of, the structures, whatever, things that white people used to throw away, we took up and eat and so on and so on. So I don't care where it comes from. What I'm saying is that I know that what made me who I am is precisely those kinds of values that I am. I cannot be comfortable on my own. And so I don't have to give from excess. I can give even when I have just enough or not even enough if there are other people who are not. And it's quite a burden, whether it's a moral obligation or not. The reason I don't want to call it tax is that I keep wondering, if you call it tax, it's like you don't want to do it. Because someone is forcing you to do it. And what hurts me the most is that young people of today call it tax even when they take care of their mothers. Not even people they don't know. Even when you take care, you help your brother or whatever, people call it tax. I don't get it. I find it problematic. That's what it is. Actually, my big problem, I guess, with our society today is values. Our value systems are absolutely upside down. That you can have a student who will spend money on weeds and all sorts of things, and still tell you that they don't have food and you must help them with this and that. But and of course, and they say to me, and they get angry with me, it's my right to use my money for the weed. They say to me, it's my right, and you must give me because of no. I'm questioning our value system. We can blame white people as much as we like. And that's not to say there's no white privilege. There is white privilege. But we have a responsibility as well. We have a responsibility to be who we want to be, to build our own, what this being an African is. It's not about flesh and,
But can we have bigger, sorry, Prof.
Yeah.
Can we have bigger salaries then, since we share our money with other people? I mean, because it's not the sharing part that is the problem.
It's
It is because I'm getting the same salary and sometimes even less compared to my white
You are
counterpart.
definitely getting
But I
less.
still need to pay for my brother's fees, my sister's child, and taking care of my mother. And all that money, I'm splitting it. And still,
SARS is also texting me like you also. And what must happen? We want to share.
Okay.
The sharing part we get, but what we are saying is that it is unfair to us as black students, as black graduates, SARS is texting me. I'm paying for this and that in my family. When am I going to get my own house and build my own house? I have no land even. You know?
What must gonna happen now? Let's go further here. So, I don't want to make my burdens other people's burdens. You see, when I sit here in Cape Town and I buy a flight to go to Harampua to work with young people in my township, I say my township, my burden. I don't care who else does what with their money, how much they get. Okay? The UCT Vice Chancellor is the lowly paid Vice Chancellor. She doesn't even have parking. At UCT, people think we are flesh. Okay, you don't even have parking that's written Vice Chancellor. You don't have bodyguards. You don't have a driver. You don't have security guards at your gate of your house. You don't have that. The fact that the Vice Chancellors of other universities have that stuff doesn't bother me. What bothers me is who am I? And what's going to make me sleep well at night? I don't care that some vice chancellor of a university of 3,000 students earns 4 million or 2 times mine or whatever. I don't care. And they don't give, it's none of my business. Whether they are white or black or pink, I don't care. It is about my values and who I want to be, who I am and who I want to be. And I'm saying it's about time. And I'm not saying there's no history of oppression or whatever. I'm saying it's there. But I'm saying if we're going to move forward, we've got to start showing our past the middle finger. We have to. We have to. And part of doing that is who are we and who do we want to be? And we're going to build that. And you guys, you are the Mandela Fellows. In fact, we look up to you to help us start building that. Start showing our past the middle finger and start saying they did that to us. They did that to us. Now we are going to own the future. For me, I have found that, frankly speaking, in my career, someone said to me, how does it happen that from under the tree you get to lead UCT? And it's that showing my past, my adversity, the middle finger, and saying, I'm going to write this. I'm going to so do this that whoever thought we can't do this, they must think again. If it takes that I sleep 2 hours, I'm going to do that. If it takes that, I earn the least salary as a vice chancellor, that is okay. So I'm just saying, I'm not saying it's going to be easy to do that. But I'm saying, Sinikiwe, we can't keep locked in our past. We can't keep our oppression with us all the time. That's not to say we don't challenge them. But I can't sit there and say, give me more money, otherwise I can't take care of it. I want to do this.
Prof, I must interject. I want to take more questions, but I want us to honor the 2 other questions that were asked.
They asked colonization.
As well, yeah. Colonization as well as the historically black universities.
Yeah. Okay, the colonization question was about how do we change research and how do we, it was about, yes, firstly he started with a shade that UCT is the top university, blah, blah, blah. Okay, now. Okay, here's the thing. Okay, I mean, I can preach a lot about there's a level at which we as Africans have to protect things that are working. But I'm not going to go there. Okay? I'm going to go here and say rankings, by the way, are not just about research. Okay? That's why we have so many rankings. I'm going to ask you to do your homework and to check what is it that gets considered. The criteria for the different rankings is different. And in all of them, teaching and learning does count. And in some of them, it's even the lecturer-student ratio, all of that stuff would count. So you've got to go deep and check each of the rankings. what's the criteria they use. Scholarship does matter, but it's not the only thing, okay? And the fact that in your discipline, your people that you read are doing the same what that we talked about, doesn't mean everybody's doing that, okay? I being in the position that I am, I mean, I've been Deputy Vice Chancellor for Research. I'm amazed at the diversity of research at UCT. And that's why I value the idea that university is not a church. We don't do the same thing. We don't sing to the same hymn. Okay? And the idea that, I mean, even theoretical frameworks and theories that inform our work are diverse. I can't read all of them. The questions that people ask, that pursue for their scholarship are so diverse. From problems of poverty to problems of 12-dimensional spaces that don't exist. You have a range and everything in between. And I want to say, in a university, it's important to have that diversity. The fact that you don't like some fraction, it doesn't mean that fraction is what makes us a university. It's just that fraction. There's a whole lot of other things that you don't know that others are doing. Last year, for example, at UCT, you don't know that we published a call on decoloniality projects that people applied for projects. We are probably the only university that did that. The academics could compete for grants, and we've got 3 big projects that are going on decoloniality that were people won on competitively, right? But we value decolonial scholarship, and we create a space for it. Some people are doing it without those grants, but as a university, we proactively made money available for people to apply and compete for it. So that scholarship is happening, and that's our contribution, sort of proactive and contribution to growing, transforming scholarship and growing it in areas that it needs to grow. Okay. We can't stop other people from doing what they like because we are not a church. If in Europa, they can do that. When are we going to... The conversation about black universities, I mean, the conversation about black universities in my view is about differentiation, actually. I mean, I'm fascinated by this idea in South Africa. And perhaps it touches on the thing that I said we're not talking about today. The idea that everyone wants Walter Sisulu University to be a UCT. It's insane, guys. It's absolutely unacceptable. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. Walter Sisulu University has got a role in this country. And here's a little story. There's a student I'm mentoring. Actually, I went to breakfast with her this morning who's doing a PhD in oceanography. And she did her undergraduate and honors at Walter Sisulu University. She's now doing a PhD. She did a master's, started a master's at UCT. She's doing a PhD now. She's flying, man. I mean, and one of our recent conversations, I was asking her to reflect on where she comes from. And I asked her, given how, I mean, she's one of our top, she's on her videos, whatever, you know, her supervisor, who's P-rated top scholar from Princeton, says, this is my best. And she's from Walter Sisulu. She says, I said to her, if we had given you a space, you didn't qualify to come to UCT when you finished matric. She said, yeah, no, I didn't. I said, is there something wrong with our entry requirements that people like you don't qualify as undergrad? And it's as if we throw you to WSU to clean you up, and then you come here when we clean you up. So should we maybe be rethinking? And I'm being provocative. She said, oh, no, Prof. If I had come here with a failed, man, I wouldn't even have been doing a PhD. She said, I went to Walter Sisulu. I failed at Walter Sisulu in undergrad. She said, I wasn't mature enough. My results were not good enough. I didn't even understand what was going on. She says, I needed Walter Sisulu University in my undergrad. She said, I didn't pass all through at the same time. At UCT, I would have been a disaster, and I wouldn't even have it. But being at Walter Sisulu failed. But the nature of the university, the fact that it doesn't operate like UCT, I then did an honors, but it was important that I graduate from there. Of course, she talked about other disadvantages of Walter Sisulu, which I will not go to because you think it's shade, right? But it made me think about the role that Walter Sisulu plays, that is not just a... And I said to her, so if Walter Sisulu had said to you, do a PhD there, she said, no. I couldn't stand it beyond it was not going to work. And so I keep thinking, we really have to take the debate on differentiation seriously. And again, it's about our values. It's about this thing that if another university, if a research university are better than maybe universities that can do better with undergrad, with underprepared students, if they can do better, then it seems as if they are not good enough. We've got to change how we see universities and say, Walter Sisulu, great at what you do. She's not the only one. There's others who are in law. I've met one who's in medicine. I think she went to UP after that. You know, it's like there's a whole lot of things that universities like those do. And for them to be valued, by the way, it starts with the people who are at those universities. Certainly. The people who are at those universities themselves. Wait. No. But here's another thing also that I want to say. We also like to throw money at this university. Okay? We think it's going to solve them. Okay, I'm going to stop. We should never want black universities to be, historically black universities, to be like UCT. We need this diversity. We need it. It serves a purpose, and it's working for us. Yes. The minute you start doing that, you're going to kill some of what. That's not to say we actually have to strengthen them in the areas that they are good at. Support them in those areas. Strengthen them, make sure that the staff feel confident about what they're doing there, and they do it well. The role that UNISA plays is completely different from what VETS does. VETS can never do what UNISA does. UCT can never do what WWF.
I must stop you there. Yay, tough job this. Quick comment also on the question on Zululand. Could that perhaps have been an option for you? You moved on further, and while you respond to that, I'm going to take hands. Got you. Just speak to that as well, because I think it is right at the heart of what you were saying earlier on.
I think in terms of the culture, and in terms of the relationships with the people and the space, I think it would have been better for my experience. But Mina, I mean, in terms of whether what Prof is saying, would see, let black universities serve the purpose that they are serving, support them there and there. Mina, I want UCT to be in Kailicha, to be Mdatane, to be, and I would like to see what would that look like to have EUCT as Zululand, to have Imangosutu in Cape Town and have EUCT Mlazi. And how would that look like in terms of geography, and would that change the culture that exists in those universities, other than just changing the curriculum? But does the geography also play a role, and also does it, in terms of access as well, as a person from Eastern Cape coming to Cape Town for UCT is also even a challenge. Both financially, if you have no relatives that side, it is far in terms of the distance, and also the culture, the fact that it's a Claremont, in the middle of a historical area as well that was previously for certain people. So I'm also interested in pushing it into saying, is the culture also about where these universities are located, and that also contributes who get to come to these universities, other than just getting the good results to get to UCT, but also in terms of traveling to get there.
Last two questions. I'm going to take them in the middle here. There's a question up front here, and Lerato right at the end. Those are the only two, folks. Sorry, time is against us. Yes, sir. Keep it short for me, please. Okay, let's go up there while we sort out the mic issue. Go for it.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Tangang Andrew from Cameroon. I'd like to congratulate Prof for her appointment as Vice Chancellor. At least we'll have an opportunity to see a Vice Chancellor without bodyguards and everything. Secondly, this second segment, we focus so much on South Africa, and I just wanted to indicate that in the other part of the continent, especially in Cameroon where I come from, our universities are completely political settings where you have to adhere to the norm of the ruling party in power in order to have positions and everything, and vice chancellors are almost like ministers. So it's just a way of telling Prof that, well, Prof, when you meet your comrades from the other parts of Africa, please try to impart some knowledge on them. And finally, South Africa is a light in terms of universities in Africa. That's a fact. 10 best universities in Africa are from South Africa. So I hope it will also be an opportunity for South African universities to try as much as possible to transfer research knowledge to other universities on the continent. Perhaps it might help us to grow. Thank you.
Solid, thank you. Are we good?
Yeah, it's working now.
Yeah.
My question is to Prof. McKay. There was when I think Snegio is her name, I hope I said that correctly.
Snegio, yes.
Yeah, when she was speaking, and she mentioned how she was intimidated of asking her lecturers and telling her lecturers that she couldn't speak proper, like that she couldn't understand their English accent. And Prof, you replied that when you went to vets, you were assertive, and that and now we should be assertive in these spaces. I think a lot of us here, scholars, would find that doable because we're all, in a sense, exceptional in one way or another in what we do.
Wow.
But wouldn't that be expecting a bit too much from someone who's just come from a, say, a rural setting, thrust into UCT, and expecting them to speak up to a 60 or 70-year-old white man standing in front of them? Like, isn't that expecting a bit too much?
Why? Why are you afraid of old white men? All right, those are all the questions we can take now. All right, Snigiwin, do you actually, I'd like you to respond to that question. Would that have been too big an expectation of you?
Hey, Gwenda. Kaloku, we're taught for many years that these people are good, you know, and these people are the future and the thing. So it's difficult because, but as for me, with my experience, I spoke to my lecturers, you know, but I still did not receive help, you know. I still did not receive the support that I needed at the time. I was told to take girl, read more newspapers, read more magazines.
Which is
know?
true. You must.
Yeah. But I was doing that. And what I was looking for, and I saw it, I was just at the university, and my lecturers were responding to me in a way, which you are here to get that piece of paper and leave. And I wasn't given an opportunity to have full experience as a student. Experiment on having this community now, which was the university at the time of my life. So I was just like, you are here for your academics, you get them right, you pass, you do this, you do that, you read more, and so on, to make sure that you do well in your classes. But actually I was also there, it was also part of my growth, you know, as a young black person, it was also part of my journey, which I was there also to make friends. I was also there to learn new things, you know, to learn about other people's religions, other people's sexual. So I felt with the university can have a bigger role in making sure that people that are new into the space, into these kind of spaces, also get a community in these spaces, in these universities. And there wasn't a lot of support. And in terms of, is it expecting too much from someone coming from a rural area to speak to a 70-year-old white man and tell them, hey, Baba, listen, I'm not understanding you, or you are not right here, you are wrong here, or asitolani, you know. I think it depends. Like I'm saying, it depends on the level that a person is at. At VETS for me in 2015, that would have been so much easier. Anton Harper knows us so well. We would just go to him and say, Prof, we spoke about this a week ago that we need more lecturers, and this week you are bringing us all white journalists to talk to us. What are you doing? You know. But at Rhodes, because I was also new in the space, it was difficult for me to sometimes talk about the things. And also because you get into the space, you think the first impression is that there is something wrong with me. You know. And then the more you engage with it, and then be like, actually, shit, it's these people. You know. And then so it's in time you learn to confront. But it's not something that you do immediately.
Sure. Prof, responses to the questions and final comments.
Yeah. You know, I said the ground is shifting. I I interact with high school kids. I still do on the ground. The ground has shifted. I mean, it's not only those boys at some private school in KwaZulu-Natal who did the EFF, whatever. I mean, I see it, I'm on the opera board, I see it there. I go to the schools in Harangua. The students of today are not the same as the students of 5 years ago at high school. I mean, in a way, that 2015, 2016 wave has gone to that level as well, even though they are not doing. Like, I find that now when I go to school, there's much more confidence in students who say, oh, this doesn't work, okay? Will it be harder for younger students first year? I'm sure it will be, but it's not as hard as it used to be 10 years ago because the ground has shifted. Secondly, she said she wants the university to what? Let me say something. I mean, when you go to university, you go there for an education. Okay. Part of that education, it's not just the certificate, I agree with you, but part of that education is also that you manage your time.
Yeah.
You got to sort out your 24 hours, that you are going to make friends and you are going to play tennis and you know, to learn about whatever. Nobody is going to make that diary for you. It's part of the, and maybe part of the learning is someone saying to you, you got to get on with the program. What does it mean to get on with the program in terms of doing all of that? And I mean, some people think, I mean, we often think white students don't have these challenges of how do you cope at university. I mean, you'll be surprised at also what generally all students have to deal with and what students, all of them, who want to get a distinction, know how difficult it is. Of course, you have a double problem. We have a double problem because we're working in a language that's not our own. We in a space, sometimes if you come from groups, even you see things like you've gone overseas, you know, and all of that. So you have multiple things that you've got to deal with, but they've got other things to do. And of course, our transformation project has to mean that everyone has got to be challenged. It's not just black students who are challenged, but nobody has to. In fact, if you go to university and they want to structure your program like you're at a boarding school in high school, you must reject it because they're denying you the opportunity to learn how to do that yourself. There must be a challenge. The process of learning is not comfortable. So learning at university has got to push you, has got to challenge you in so many other ways. If it doesn't, you are cheated. You are cheated, and I say that to young people at high school. If you go to university and you just sail through your courses, you get distinctions, you must complain. Someone somewhere who's just giving you, and you are not feeling that there's something wrong there. So, and I'm not saying it should be brutal, traumatic, and all of that, I'll be worried if you just went in and they shouldn't. So your lecturer didn't help you, support you, and I'm thinking, what kind did you want? Okay, something like we have a writing center. You can go in there, or there are mentors at residence. We set up mentor system at our residences, and they can help you. Or you can select your mentor, and then of course you've got to learn how to engage with your mentor to get the most out of them. If residents don't do that, there's a problem. They think everyone's the same. So what is it that they do? Residents have to create that community so that there's learning that goes on in there as well. And maybe that's what you're talking about. And if that's not happening, of course, it's going to happen. But no one should think university education should be. It's supposed to be how it's a transformative process. And a transformative process, it's not easy. There's got to be some challenge that you. Otherwise, they should just give us degrees for free.
Can I ask a question?
No, we're out of time. We will actually take this conversation outside. I think the MRM owes us an extra 3 hours because this is such a big conversation. I hope that you feel challenged, you're engaged, and that we'll have an opportunity to take this question further, this conversation further. Thank you very much for your attention. Wonderful.